budget work session for the town of Narragansett fiscal year 2020 budget with the staff to order. And so we're going to pick up where we left off from last night. Patrick Murray's unable to attend this evening. So what I'm going to do is turn it over. Human Resources Director is unable to be here tonight, so we'll turn it over to Sean. He will present on behalf of her.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
Human Resources is a very small department, doesn't have any employees, so primarily what you're looking at here is just wages and benefits. Just a few lines that where she does have some purchasing is professional services. This is for employee assistance program.
And this is on page 11.
Yes, page 11.
Page 4.
Drug testing, annual corporate administration, things like that for the department. Line 50305, supplies, just paper supplies for her department. And then 50306, ads for employment she does for all different departments. Anybody who's hiring, she's the one who does the ads for us. And then 50310, special meetings. This is the line that she has for doing awards for employees. Someone hits a milestone in their career, 20 years, you get a plaque, and they do a little ceremony here, and they have breakfast for you, gift card. Kind of, it's good for morale. And that's it, unless you have any other questions.
Any questions on HR?
Okay. No capital. This is John from Engineering.
And for you, it's page 48 in the council, and
Page 17.
they call it.
John, come on up to the battery box.
The hot seat.
Please.
Bring everything I have, hopefully I won't need it all. Back these up, so this forward. Okay. Let's try to stay ahead of this. I guess to start, Sean, you said
We'll do a basic overview of the department, how many employees they have and what they do.
Yep. The engineering department oversees the water and wastewater divisions as well as the engineering division. Water and wastewater division has 8 full-time positions, the water division 5 and the engineering division 5, so there's 18 positions. Right now, the engineering division and the water division are both fully staffed. The wastewater division, we have one vacancy to be filled that we have the resumes out and we're interviewing for right now. And again, what the wastewater division handles is they run the treatment plant down at Scarborough. They handle the pre-treatment program and the water and the sewer for the town, and also coordinate with South Kingstown for the regional wastewater treatment facilities and those activities. They do inspections for the restaurants and the oil grease traps and things like that. And right now they have some minor upgrades and some capital improvements at the treatment plant. Water division, day-to-day operations of the water system, and they manage and operate the treatment facilities. We have some disinfection facilities in to treat the water, and they make sure that the operations are maintained properly, assist, and they do meter readings and water turn-offs, turn-ons, and similar activities on those ends. In engineering, we provide support to all the town, other town departments, DPW with some of the stormwater permitting issues. We do plan reviews for the building department and subdivision reviews or building plan reviews that come up. And we also support a lot of the departments with assistance in bidding for soliciting bid prices for either construction, capital projects, or even equipment and other replacement components. And that's generally where we stand for those departments.
And for employees, do we still do that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 split?
There's a
For
whole,
some of the
it's
employees?
not quite a third, everybody has different ratios, it could be a quarter, it could be a third.
Yeah, it's a little
So,
different.
but yes, they are all prorated,
For the 3 departments?
yes.
Yeah, within the engineering division, they
So do you
So
wanna just-
capital engineering really doesn't have that, right?
No.
Yeah.
They, okay, so in engineering had requested a truck, but they're willing to take a hand-me-down when somebody's going to get something new.
That
So
sounds
we
good.
took out the truck from the budget and we said we'll get a hand-me-down.
Did you hear that, Stanley? They requested an
I was
hand-me-down.
hearing that loud and clear.
Any questions on engineering?
The full-time wages for general engineering is for 2 employees, is that right?
It's a percentage of many, it's a percentage of few people.
Okay.
I can give you the exact.
So
breakdown
just
if you want,
conceptually, that's why I said the 1/3, 1/3,
Yeah.
1/3. So conceptually, the best way to think of it is that the 3 departments, because they do those 3 tasks, water, sewer, and engineering, that the allocation of the wages is approximately split a third, a third, a third. But each employee is a little different because of their skill set. You can drill down with water
Right,
at some point.
because,
you
you
want
know,
to see
Hadley spends
exact-
50 and
right.
50, Jen spends 50 and 50, but everybody, though, who works at water gets water, he is a third, a third, a third. It's, so everybody has different percentages
Okay.
going into different funds.
Okay.
The overall water towers, are they part of the engineering?
I'm sorry,
The
the,
water towers, the.
is water.
That's what, that's
Water
the
fund.
other department, okay.
So do we want to slide into the 2 enterprise funds then?
That would be wonderful.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Page 84. first one.
Page 84 for us and
29 for the public.
29 for the public.
84, yeah, go.
So on, if you, as his own department.
Do you want to bring Doug up then?
Well, do we?
Yeah, no, let's just delve right into the reason why Doug's here, so.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, Doug's here because.
Yeah, just grab a chair.
Yeah.
So the council approved having Doug do the rate study for both water and wastewater this year. That's fine, you can sit in front of me.
Okay, so
Water and wastewater this year to see if our revenue was going to be sufficient for long-term in both of those funds, and if we had enough reserves for both funds. And I'll let Doug speak on what he found.
Good evening. You have a packet in front of you, a
Yeah.
PowerPoint packet, which is bulleted highlights of the study, some budgets, and our general findings. So this is the 3rd time that I've come before you, not the 5 of you, but this board. And I've been working with the town for the last 7 or 8 years, I would say, on the water and sewer rates, making sure that you stay current with your rates and make sure that the overall health of the 2 enterprise funds remains healthy and keeps you moving in the right direction. So just want to, I'll keep this as brief as I can, and if you have questions as we go along, feel free to ask as we go, or if you want to wait to the end, that's fine too, it doesn't matter to me. So our objectives when we started the study, and what we have completed, is that we wanted to complete a full cost of service study. That is, what is the cost of water? Who are the customers that place the demand on your system, and what is the cost that each customer places on you? Ultimately, when you determine where the costs are coming from, that's how you want to go and charge your customers. We determined the equitable rates by customer. The next bullet is very important, that the rate structures fund 100% of all the expenses, including the debt, if there is any, and all the capital. So there's no general fund contribution. The 2 enterprise funds operate on their own revenue. We designed the rates to strengthen the health of the enterprise funds and we calculated the cost of service provided to each customer. Page 3, our findings. What's driving the water rates is purchased water. You buy your water from Suez, formerly United, and from North Kingstown. Both have had rate increases or have charged you additional amounts through a rate increase over the last few years. When I completed the study in 2017, not 6 months after the study was complete, Suez came back for another rate increase, which we couldn't have anticipated. So that's why I'm here before you. It's really the purchased water that's driving the rates. The water rates, it's going to be pretty close in fiscal '20. You're going to be pretty much break even in terms of revenue and expenses. And of course, you fund depreciation and making sure that the fund is healthy. The wastewater is in very good shape. The revenues support all the expenses. The long and short is we're looking for a fairly reasonable rate increase on the water end, and we're recommending no rate increase for the wastewater. So I'd like to see the minimum charge increase slightly. We must continue to fund capital to improve the system. Every time we don't improve the system, we fall behind. So the goal is to keep it moving forward. If you don't keep up with the maintenance, you don't keep up with the capital, the system will deteriorate faster and faster, and ultimately it ends up costing you more money. Again, the rates will fund 100% of the water and wastewater budget, and we must continue to fund the depreciation. So again, why the rates increasing? Suez and North Kingstown are going to be looking for rate increases, and that's what's going to be driving the rate. Sure, your operating costs are rising every year, but at a fairly small clip, but we take that into consideration moving forward. The reserves are slowly being depleted. The reserves are used to fund capital, and the more capital we complete, the faster the reserves go down. So the goal is to keep funding those reserves so that we can keep funding the capital. Page 5 is are there any questions first?
One question. So when we purchase from North Kingstown, we're purchasing from the town itself? Or from, so are they municipal? Do they have a municipal water?
They are, but they have they sell water to a certain section of the town, and then you buy the rest of the water from Suez. So you don't produce any of your own water, it's all purchased.
Yes, but North Kingstown, they produce themselves. It's a
Yes,
municipal plant.
it's a municipal.
South Kingstown uses Suez as well, right?
Yes, they do.
And is a municipal water plan or system something that's feasible in Narragansett? Are there restricted reasons why we would never even think about doing that?
I'm not an engineer.
It's
So
the water supply. North Kingstown has their wells.
Yeah.
So they have a couple of groundwater supply wells. So we could do some investigations, but because of location and our proximity to the coast, trying to find a good enough supply that produces enough water for us would be problematic.
I imagine the wells would have to be pretty shallow here. And I live in a community similar to Narragansett, and our wells are very shallow. So we have a dozen wells for a population of 6,000 year-round people.
How many do we have?
Private wells?
Yeah, very few.
I'm not sure how many are all private. I can't imagine it's a lot, especially with the small lot
South
sizes we
Kingstown, you see a
have.
lot, but I don't see anyone into any around
But
here.
there's other, we're lucky enough to not have any treatment for a long period of time until we were required to do the disinfection. Now, that's all we have to do, but when you have a supply source, you have other treatment, you have metals or, if it's hard water, soft water, you're going to treat for that too. So there would be increased operating expenses in terms of, pumping the water out of the ground ourselves. But I don't think there's, and the state is, they've had studies as to whether the groundwater supplies are or not. And they're trying to push us in that direction as far as I know.
Okay. Yeah, I only bring it up just because of that contamination from last year. And a lot of residents were concerned about a private company, really being in control of the water supply, so that's the only reason I bring it up.
So page 5 is just a graph that shows the water division's revenues and expenses, and you can see the revenues and the expenses kind of intertwined, which is really what you don't want. You want the blue revenue line to always be above the red expense line. But you can see we're pretty much at break even for the last few years. Page 6 is for the wastewater, and you can see that revenue is usually much higher than the expense, but we've had a lot of capital over the last couple of years, and that's why the expenses are so much higher. It's not a case that you're running a deficit, it's the capital, which is funded by the reserves. So it's a little misleading. And page 7 or 8 and 8 are your graphs of your unrestricted net assets, and you can see the water looks like a W. So it's it started high, it trends down, you start building it up again, it levels off for a year, drops back down, you're building it up again. So it's okay. It's not a huge swing. It's only about $500,000 from the high to the low. So it's not a huge swing, but I guess it looks worse than it really is. It's still pretty solid. For wastewater, you can see that the fund balance runs right around $6 million, and we've been using more and more of that over the last couple of years for the capital, so it has trended down in the last 2 years, but again, not by a large amount. And while that does seem like a high number, you have to remember that all the assets in the ground are uninsured. So if there is some sort of catastrophic break or problem, you need the revenue to make the improvements. So it's a necessary evil. So the base charge, you do have a base charge for both your water and wastewater fund. And the base charge really is designed to recover the ongoing costs. Meter reading, there's some personnel costs in there, possibly debt service, even though the water fund is debt-free. But in many communities, it's debt service. The minimum charge is guaranteed revenue. Here in Narragansett, you allow an amount of flow in that minimum charge. So for the minimum charge that you're charged every quarter, water is included in that amount. Now, if you don't use the water, it rolls over to the next month, or to the next quarter, and then the next quarter. And at the end of the year, you're allotted up to 6,000 cubic feet. If you don't use the 6,000 cubic feet, it doesn't roll over to the next year. If you exceed the 6,000 cubic feet, there's a series of step rates, what are known as overage charges that increase from there. Now, of the roughly 5,300 customers, roughly 3,600 of those water customers use the 6,000 cubic feet or less. That's 68% of your customer base uses the minimum or less. For wastewater, you're allowed up to 8,000 cubic feet, and that's in case you do any outside irrigation, or if you fill a pool, wash your car or something like that. So they'll give you a little bit extra. And of the roughly almost 8,000 customers, roughly 5,000 of them use the minimum or less, a little less than about 63%. So on average, 2/3 of your customer base uses the minimum or less. When I presented 2 years ago before the board, there was talk about a meter project, changing out all the meters in town, going with a radio read system and going with what's known as a fixed network system. That is, you don't actually have to go out and physically read the meters, the readings come to you. And when I presented before the board, we discussed that it was going to be about $1.2 million, somewhere in that ballpark. In that, we were gonna, and what we recommended was that there would be a quarterly assessment to each customer for a 2-year period to help pay for that project. There's a couple different ways you could go about it. You could pay for it through the rates, that is building that money into the rates and have the rates pay for it. You could take out debt, which I wouldn't recommend, but you could use debt to pay for it. You could use the fund balance to pay for it, or you could use a quarterly assessment to pay for it. That is, it's on the books for 2 years, the customer pays for it, when the project is paid off, it comes off the books. So $29 4 times a year for 2 years, and then it's gone. The problem, and my experience tells me that if you incorporate this amount into the rates, it never comes off the rate. Just something else gets added onto it. So this is a nice, transparent way to show the customers what they're paying for, and then once the project is paid for, it comes off their bill. It's worked well. I believe it was the standpipe or tank that we did that a few years ago, and we had a lot of success with it. The customers understood, and then when it's paid, it's off. So we're not presenting this. This isn't part of the rate study tonight, but I did want to bring it up because it was brought up.
It was actually budgeted in this current year, Doug.
Oh, okay.
The 1.2 is a project of fiscal year 19.
Okay.
Doug, I'm sorry, I think I just missed it at the beginning. What is the meter project?
The meter project is to replace all the water meters and the radios, and then purchase what's known as a fixed network system. Right now, when the meters are read, you have to go out and read them. They're brought in via radio, but it's labor intensive.
It's a drive-by.
This is
They've got a device
They have
that you drive by.
Okay, so it's
or
a drive-by unit. This would be, readings actually come to you. So you'll be able to see people's readings every day. Different systems.
So it pulls
in
in remotely to a central.
Yeah, you've got to set up
It's
the
just,
fixed network to be able to get them all remotely into the central location. And that would be part of the capital cost. And part of the other reason for the meter replacement too is these existing ones, the batteries are all, they need to be replaced, and then there's lack of support for the system that's in there, and it's not as flexible. And again, it's manual labor to go around, drive around and read the meters all the time. If we can free the water department up, because it's another one of their duties from doing that, it saves them, the time from doing that. We only do quarterly readings, but it would also free us up to do some different billing scenarios.
So
if we want to do-
monthly billing or.
Do you have an estimate of the cost involved in that, the manual, for the labor of going around and reading these meters?
I'd have to check to see what we typically do, but I think it's they take a couple of days at least per quarter.
Mhm.
So you're talking about, 2 or 3 man days per quarter, so 10 or 12 a year at least. And then in terms of, I'm not exactly sure about how long it takes us to get the data back and dump it in. I think we take it downstairs there's a combination of us and the tax collector's department that handles some of the billing and the input, and the data input. I know we handle all the billing and sending the bills out from the water department for the last year or two. And I think there's still some of the data input is part of the tax collection.
In my opinion, the real benefit of moving to this type of meter reading system is you're going to be able to see people's readings every day, and everything will be on, is software driven, of course, so it'll be on the desktop, and you'll be able to run a report to people who are flagged as having high consumption. So if somebody has a leak, that'll get flagged immediately instead of waiting for 3 months or 6 months for it to be discovered. So you can be much more proactive with your customer service and actually call people and say, hey, you've got we've noticed that your consumption has jumped by 50% in the last few days. They could have the toilet running, they could have the hose running outside, any number of issues. So it allows you to be much more proactive, and it's really great for customer service.
That happened to me personally, and I had to pay $5,000 of water, because it did it, I didn't know about it,
Yeah.
so.
And sometimes you'll get your bill, or someone will ask for a reading, hey, I want to read it now, because they think something happened.
Yeah.
And then it's easier to make the adjustment if you can see that, because you'll find
So would that require an additional employee to monitor that, or is it just based on
No.
alerts? So
No.
you get like alerts probably?
Actually, I think it would save you an
Yeah.
employee cost, that instead of having your employees go out and reading meters, say 15 man-hours a year, they can be put to much more productive uses. They could actually go out and be fixing the meters, as opposed to reading the meters, so I think it will free up time.
It'll be a matter of getting out the software and program, but just like the SCADA system with those meetings, you can, when you get the system set up, you decide what kind of reports you want to have with it, and if you want to have those things, and whether any of that is built in. I haven't gotten into the nuts and bolts of that system yet, but sometimes you can build in like a trigger if the consumption over a day or a week or month is a certain percentage more, that'll send a flag out, a notification. Plus the other thing too is like the real estate transaction, hey, we need a meter reading. Our guys have to go out and read a meter, whereas now we can do it from the desktop.
Yeah.
And do that all day. So again, the 15 man hours or so we were talking is just for the scheduled quarterly meter readings where it's like, oh, I need a reading today, so you guys gotta run out and do that. So it's just automation and a means of using the manpower more effectively.
And as water meters get older, they're designed to slow down. So by changing the meters out in the system, you're going to get much more accurate readings, which will lead to much more equitable rates. So each customer is paying for what they actually use, not if someone has a slow meter, they're being subsidized by someone who has a meter that's running much more accurately.
All right, and Lori, it's 16 or 600,000 is in for this year?
No, there's $1.2 million in the 18-19 budget, so the year we're currently in. We talked about this a year ago, and we used $1 million of fund balance. So if the project doesn't get completed this year, then we will have to roll that project forward. We did not for this budget. Usually in an enterprise fund, we would put all projects back on. It's not like general fund capital that I rolled, but in this instance, that 1.2 will be rolled after the budget process.
Where is that on what line item?
So if you actually look, so if you go to the water on page 84, you will notice in fund balance for the 19 budget that we used $1 million. And then it is actually on page 86, about an inch from the bottom, 50648, meter read equipment, $1.2 million.
So, you all set to move on?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, page 11. This is the meat and potatoes of the study. These are the actual rates. And I try to present this as simply as I can, but I'll go through and explain it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. You have your base rate, and it's a quarterly charge, but everything is annualized. So presently for a 5/8" meter, and that's what a standard homeowner would have, a 5/8" meter. They pay $320 per year, and that includes up to 6,000 cubic feet of water for that $320. So divide that by 4 and it works out to be, if my math is correct, $80 a quarter. We're recommending a $20 increase per year, so $5 a quarter, to a total of $340 per year. That's about $20 a year, it's about 6.25% in terms of a percentage increase. There were a couple different ways we could have gone in raising the additional money we need. We could have maintained the base charge at the present $320 and having step rates, that's where all consumption above that 6,000 cubic feet go up. But because purchased water is what's really driving the rate increase, we felt everyone should share equally in the increase. So the increase to the minimum charge and the increase to the step rates is 6%, roughly 6%. Doesn't always work out when you round it, but it's about a 6% increase overall. So and then for those customers that have larger meters, their minimum charge actually increases. The reason being is larger meters can flow greater amounts of water, and when you can flow greater amounts of water, you need to have larger capacity in your infrastructure system. So whereas if everybody in town had a 5/8 inch meter, you may only need to run a 6-inch line down the road. But because some people have a 2-inch meter, some people have a 6-inch meter, you might need a 12-inch line to properly supply the water. So those that are placing the greater demand on your system should be paying a higher rate. And that's basic American Water Works principles, and that's how we establish the rate structure. So those who have larger meter sizes pay a larger fee. And again, it's about a 6% increase across the board. Okay. So then I talked about the overage charges. So those customers that use more than the 6,000 cubic feet, there's what's known as a 3-step increasing block rate. So that is, the more you use, the more you pay. So anybody who uses in excess of 6,000 cubic feet per year, but less than 9,500 cubic feet per year, pays $2.75 per 100 cubic feet for all the consumption in that range. When they exceed the 9,500 cubic feet, but up to 12,900 cubic feet, all consumption between that 9,500 and 12,900 is at $3.72 per 100 cubic feet. And then anything in excess of the 12,900 is billed at $4.67 per 100 cubic feet. Those are your current rates. And again, we're looking at about a 6% increase, so the 275 would increase to 292. The second step rate of $3.72 would increase to $3.94. And the third step for all consumption in excess of the 12,900 would be $4.95, about a 6% increase for each of those steps. Everybody okay? Okay. Page 12 is wastewater. This one's really easy to understand, no increases. So the rates, our analysis is that determine that the rates that you currently charge are sufficient to meet the needs for fiscal 20 through 22. I'm sorry, I neglected to mention at the beginning of the presentation that these rates will hopefully be valid for 3 years, fiscal 20, 21, 22. And I have included rate increases each year from Suez in my analysis. So we're anticipating that there are going to be additional increases. So we're kind of, once bitten, twice shy. So we've learned from the past. So we'd rather over budget a little bit than under budget and have to come back to you sooner rather than later. So no changes to the wastewater rates. So how will the new rates affect my bill? Everybody's going to see an increase on the water side. Those who use the 6,000 cubic feet or less will see a $20 increase per year. Anybody who uses more than the 6,000 minimum will see an additional increase. And I have some of those details on page 14. So those who use the most pay the most, that is state law. You have to have, you can have a flat rate, but any block rate must be an increase in block rate for water. But it's not true with wastewater. You can have a decrease in block rate with wastewater.
Would we be able with this, every once in a while in the summer, we have a ban for water, we can't use it, it's odd even. Would this be able to help us monitor that and possibly find people if they're just trying to find ways
The
to
new
get additional
meters,
rates?
yes.
The new meters would.
Absolutely.
But the rates,
The rates,
other
no.
than discouraging water use when
But
that
the new
costs.
meters, are-
Yeah, the new meters, yes.
okay.
But how would you know that someone's using like a sprinkler as opposed to internal water?
I'm sure you can set up, each software is a little different, but you could set up parameters where, you know, if it exceeds whatever their average consumption has been in the past, it'll flag that account and you can do some investigating to find out.
A little Big Brother-esque, but that's a separate discussion.
Well, you know what, it's, yes and no. I prefer to look at it that the benefits far outweigh any potential issues like that, because you're now going to be able to find leaks so much sooner. And some people get water bills, $5,000-$10,000, because they have an internal leak that they just don't know about, and it just runs and it runs and it runs.
I know
And,
someone who left their hose on outside, they went to water their garden, they went inside, they left their hose running. And no, they're not watering their lawn, but it would be something that you could at
Yeah.
least identify. If it's not a leak in the house, it was, the hose was left on, so.
Yeah, unless it was like a big user, and I don't think we have deduct meters at all. That you would have a deduct meter for landscaping use, so that you can further reduce your wastewater bill, because
And that's the other problem, if you have wastewater, then you're getting hit twice, because the wastewater is determined on the metered water.
and then our rates are set up with that annual allowance, the cap to 6,000, because I know there was some discussion in the past about making that quarterly, along with the bills and resetting, but that might capture more people, because some people are only here in the summer and they use all their water in the summer. If you have that ability to, or people are using more in the summer, you might go over those quarters, but not go over in a year. So there's pluses and minuses on which way you do it, but.
And your current rate structures, both for water and wastewater, are working well. So, you know, if it's not broken, we don't need to fix it. We do need to tweak the rates because the cost of water, purchased water, is increasing. But your overall rate structure is working exactly as it should. Now, when you put in new meters, we always analyze the consumption and your trends might change. So if that were the case, then slight changes might be warranted. But for now, everything's working as it should. You're bringing in sufficient revenue. People, importantly, people understand how the bills are generated. So it eliminates a lot of customer service work from here in Town Hall in terms of people calling and questioning. So it's a system that you've had in place for a number of years now. It's working. Just make the changes to make sure you have enough revenue, but there's no need to change the overall structure because it is solid.
Is there a way we can actually connect this, so if, let's just say you're a consumer and you're at the end where you know that you might be at that 6,000, almost closing at 6,000, and money is kind of an issue, can we get this so someone can go online and just check what their consumption is?
Yes.
I would imagine that.
A lot
could
of
be set up that way.
a lot of the new meters and a lot of the new software, you can download an app to your phone, and you can, the phone will interact with the water meter, and you can see your real-time meter, your real-time reading.
That'll stop all the phone calls from the realtors in to you
That'll
guys
help,
too.
yeah.
The attorneys can go right into it.
It's a tremendous customer service tool, and really helps eliminate a lot of the, people understand now how their water meter works, and they can actually see their water consumption, so if they want to conserve because they feel it's too high, they can. I don't know if the attorneys would be able to go in look at other people's consumptions. I think there's some privacy issues there. I think it's the homeowner that would
Yeah,
have
but
that
they can
ability.
access it, and if that works for the real estate transactions, I'm not sure we may be required to get it from the water utility as a final reading. I think that's generally how it is, because they'll want the final reading so they can go down and everybody knows what the bill goes the right way.
Yeah, I think we cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
So the last page, page 16, we're recommending that you approve the rates and charges. It would be for the first billing in fiscal '20, traditionally that's September of 2019. The water rates will require future increases because you're buying the water. Personnel costs go up, everything goes up. So future increases will be necessary, but these should last you solid 2-3 years. The proposed water rates are sustainable in the short term, but at some point, we're gonna have to look at adjusting them as well. And then, next independent analysis, again, 2 or 3 years, I think is a realistic timeframe. I hope your shorthand is good.
I think so.
So are there any questions?
So with our water system, as far as the sewer system pipes, the water pipes, the lines that are in the roads, we have systems out there that are how old?
They're aging, there's, the wastewater would be less, not as old, I'm not sure the exact ages of all the systems, but newer developments would have newer pipes, and the more recent wastewater systems would be younger, but some of the systems are pretty old, I imagine.
I think we have some out there that are on
Oh, without a doubt.
with the 80 years,
But even 80 years,
right?
believe it or not, for a cast iron pipe, isn't that old. And the new ductile iron that they put in is even, will last even longer. I've seen pipe in the ground 120, 130 years. All depends on how it's, the acidity of the water, has everything been maintained, and a lot of factors that go into it. But the infrastructure is aging, and that's why we have the water fund or the reserves.
Yeah, that's what you want the reserve for, just in case
Right.
something breaks.
That's all uninsured.
Right. Well, and with our road construction, the concerns that, I'm sure that we're looking at is when we do construct or resurface a road, we want to make sure that that infrastructure that's under the road
Yeah.
also gets updated.
Yeah, if it needs it.
If it needs it, right.
If it needs it. If it's, don't throw good money after bad if it doesn't need it.
No, I understand.
But it's also a time where you can inspect it, and
Right.
and just because you have, what's on your paper doesn't necessarily correlate to what's in the ground, especially for the older pipes. So, if it's open and you can take a look and make an assessment and figure out what you need to do.
Good.
John, one quick question as far as the E. coli from last summer. That's all been resolved, we know where the source was, any problems have been fixed, we can rest assured?
As far as I know, that there was no, we had some confusion on the sample that the DOH took from our system that had a positive. It was only a single positive, if I recall correctly, but we've addressed everything in our system, and we've had, they've increased some of our sampling, and we increased some of our, we increased the application rate of chlorine to the system, and we made those adjustments, so that's all in place.
Okay, thank you.
The water rate increase, Laura, is reflected budgetary-wise on which line?
It's not because we are talking about it. It will go into the current tax revenue, but to be quite honest, I don't know if I'd up the revenue. It's just we wouldn't be using as much fund balance when it actually came down to a budget line. So I actually probably would not change the water budget as it's proposed to you.
Okay, so the budget itself won't change, it's
It's
really
an
a
enterprise
discussion for the
fund, so-
vote, where we would vote on it in the summertime to increase the rate.
Correct.
And our revenues will reflect that change.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, my pleasure, thank you.
So that basically is also the discussion of the wastewater fund.
That was a triple.
Yes, very efficient.
So I don't know where, if you have any questions specifically on the wastewater fund or anything. And we could be on to the towers.
Like I said, Jeff.
Thank you.
New truck. Is giving away now. I already told someone that they could have the truck running for the.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So now it's the next
That
one.
might have to be to see.
Public, that's page 39.
Anyone go? Hi,
You're free to
Dave.
go.
Welcome.
They told me they
How
would
are
get
you?
my truck away.
Beautiful day today, wasn't it?
Gorgeous.
No fall,
We'll figure it out.
no rain, flowers are blooming, grass is growing like that. Cutting the grass.
Did you bring extra copies of your budget? Okay.
So Laura and I were updating the numbers.
And I would just tell her,
She's got them all.
she's got it.
So today,
The council doesn't.
so today Dave contacted me while I was, you know, I was revising from last night. And the Towers Committee Board met and went over their budget. He gave me the numbers for their budget, no problem. So that's incorporated into our general fund budget. The only funding from general fund sources to the towers is the required request of $50,000 for capital out of general fund. So in the general fund budget, you will see a transfer to the towers in the 900 department. It's $50,000. However,
So the Towers Committee voted again not to request or not, it's not that they're refusing it, but they don't need the 50,000 again this year. So it is not in our proposed budget that we revised and sent to Laura.
so with that ahead of time, I have then reduced the general fund transfer to the towers by that $50,000.
So you guys got an easy $50,000 cut, just like that. It's not needed. The Towers fund balance has, is strong, and it is more than sufficient, given the current demands on it, to cover all of our anticipated capital project needs and still have a real healthy reserve for whatever might happen.
So just as, so they're using about $63,000 of their fund balance that they had.
And that's, if you look at it, we're actually going to spend it on a capital project. We have a capital project with an estimated cost of $60,000. So it's anticipated that the funding from the fund balance is going to capital project, that operating expenses and revenue are still in balance.
And they had a reserve of about $400,000.
What's the project? Can you tell us?
So, yes, and you're going to see it in not at the next council meeting, but within the next couple of council meetings. They also voted to proceed with that. So if all of you are familiar with the third floor, the emergency exit is down this spiral staircase at the back of the Chamber of Commerce and comes out in the Coast Guard House parking lot. We've always been a little uncomfortable with the safety of that and its usability. And we want to upgrade some of the features of that exit. We're going to add a handrail on the exterior side of the staircase as it winds down, so that people who are going down the staircase on the wider tread will have a handrail on the right-hand side against the wall, as opposed to the current handrail that's going to remain there is on the inside of the spiral. You'd have to use your left hand on it going down. So that doesn't, we thought that it'd be a lot more user-friendly with the handrail on the outside. The landing on the second floor and the landing at ground level do not have finished ceilings. There's unfinished walls and unfinished ceilings dating way back to decades ago. So those surfaces will all be finished. There'll be flooring put down instead of on top of the plywood that's on the landing. And one of the big things is that the opening in the stone wall for the exit door to open out into the parking lot is going to be widened so that a full 36-inch door can be installed. Right now the door is 28 or 30. 36-inch door will handle a lot more people efficiently in case of an emergency. And Abcor assures me that they can modify the masonry in that opening, and when it's all done, it won't really look any different other than it's wider. We're also going to, now that we have new boilers in the attic, the old boiler exhaust and fresh air ductwork is in the ceiling over the elevator lobby at the back end of the building, on the west end of the building. That ceiling is going to be restored to its original height and new lighting put in so that that exit area is more user-friendly. What else? So it's kind of an ad hoc collection of odds and ends. It's not real sexy a project, but we feel it's really important. And the total cost of all that work is just shy of $60 grand.
It's important stuff, though.
We think it is. You know, now that we've gone from, new roofs and restoration, a cupola balcony, beautiful floor, all new windows. Oh, there's one other feature. I forgot it. Should have reminded me of that. So the balcony French doors take a beating from the weather when we get weather out of the northeast and east and southeast. So all of our bad storms are against those doors. And the doors take a beating, and oftentimes the wind-driven rain will make it by the weather stripping, and we have a wet floor. And it's a wood floor. It doesn't like to be wet. It causes deterioration of the floor, the quality of the floor. We've investigated some solutions to that problem, and most of you are familiar with wind-up hurricane shutter systems. So there is a roof eave over those doors on the balcony end, and we'll be able to tuck hurricane shutter systems right up underneath the eave, and there'll be 3 shutter systems that will be able to roll down and protect the 3 double French doors, keep the weather out. So, not just for hurricanes, but for any major weather event.
Yeah, so the towers as an event center has been very successful, and the committee does a great job of staying on top of it, so thank you to Dave for that.
At your next regular meeting, you're going to be getting a copy of our revised operating plan, which is a multi-year plan, and it's very similar to the last operating plan, but Jesse's never seen it. And Jill, I'm not sure if you ever maybe saw it.
Ricky hasn't.
Right. So you'll be getting
You'll
be getting this, and it should answer all of your questions about how the towers operates. I won't go into any of it tonight because it'll.
Keep us in suspense.
That's it.
But basically, the towers doesn't utilize any tax dollars. subsidize operations. And it has done very well over the years, keeping revenue and expenses in alignment. And most of the tax dollars have all been focused on capital improvements and restoration work. So we're very proud of the place.
So are we.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Anything else?
So,
I have no effect on your tax rate.
I know.
So all is good.
Positive effect.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
So next up is police, and for you is page 32.
And for public, page 11.
Good evening. Welcome.
So while I've been doing the acting town manager job, I've put Matt in charge of the police department. He's been delegated the acting chief role, so I thought it would be a good experience for him to go through the budget process, and he's going to be taking care of the budget tonight. So now we'll start with the dispatch budget, so we give everybody an overview on our staff in there and duties they perform.
Sure. So there are 9 full-time public safety dispatchers. They dispatch police, fire, and rescue. By contract, there has to be 2 of them working at all times, with the exception of between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., where we have discretion by contract to go down to 1 based on needs. So a lot of their overtime is contractual, that has to be filled. It's a safety issue, dispatching police and fire at the same time is demanding. I don't think there's anything in the new budget. The only very modest increase of, I think, $75 is a request for an increase to the mileage reimbursement for trainings, which we don't use a lot of to begin with, but.
Any questions on the dispatch
That's
budget?
dispatch, yeah.
Yeah, so again, as with the fire, I had to pull out the civilian personnel, so there's a new department that is in your budget. That's why you have no history on it, which is Department 510. And then it'll go into 511, which is the balance of that personnel, which is the administration. So if you want to speak on that department.
And then really the bulk is the police patrol.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of our purchasing happens out of the admin budget, so.
And there were changes to this, same as the fire last night when I was preparing the budget. They do have a wage increase as of June 30, and I missed that. So when we talk later about what's in the new proposed, or where you stand, that has been included in the budget now.
So now if you just go over the administration, which is basically myself, you, Captain Regas, Stacy, Sherry Carpenter, and Tony Vitale.
So the administrative component, the first group of lines is all the salary and benefits for the employees that the chief just named. After that, we get into basically the expenses of running the business in a building. There's a lot of different lines in here. It covers a variety of things, depending on which line. Tuition reimbursements, professional services that we have to pay for, the phone system, police protection by South Kingstown for Jerusalem, supplies, paper, ammunition, tasers, recruitment, which would be tests, psychological evaluations, various licenses for the products we use, notary commissions, the parking ticket software that we use in the summer with the seasonal employees, antivirus software, the software that we use to maintain all of our training, accreditation, and policies and procedures on there. Attendance software, the employee personnel evaluation software, regular monthly stuff. We have a monthly an ongoing purchase order with Jerry's Hardware for little things, Dunkin' Donuts to feed the prisoners. The dog needs food. I think you get the idea. If you have a question on any of these lines,
We don't need to, right, yeah.
there are a few that ask for some small increases under if you have any specific questions.
Yeah.
When we did increases, we tried to identify other lines where we did decreases to try and compensate for that.
And I believe your version also had the notes, that's why you included notes in your versions.
Yes. I still need to meet Astor. Every single time I see the car, I'm like, stop.
They do have capital.
Oh, that's going to be kept.
So, right, so you have dispatch, non-officer admin, police patrol investigation, is that in animal control and harbor master?
Yes, correct. Okay, so you go down to page 38, where general police patrol, we're going to tell you the rest. Department to go through. So that makes up 33 of our members, the patrol does, from lieutenant down, excluding the detectives. And now if you can update everybody, we also here under temporary seasonal, that's our CSO program. Laura, last year we didn't have the grant, this year it's coming back.
I like that
Based on
answer.
Yeah.
50% is that right, Ken?
Yeah, so there's an entity called the Governor's Workforce Board, and it has a number of programs that are designed to get people to work. Some of them are for adults, some of them are for college students, which we use. In the past, they did reimbursed 50% of the wages up to a certain point for up to 10 employees. The program for state of Rhode Island financial reasons was discontinued last year. It was sort of just taken offline. It didn't exist at all. It's coming back this year in a modified version. They're going to do the 50% of 5 employees. So we'll have that on the books this year. We've already hired those individuals. They'll be starting in about a month and a half. So.
And they wrote approximately how many parking tickets last?
They on average, they write about 2,500 to 3,000 parking tickets a year. So it's a huge resource for us. Not for the revenue for the police department necessarily, but it takes a huge strain off of the officers. There's a lot more things to be doing in the summertime down here than during the fire. They do an excellent job of it. So. We've really actually professionalized the program a lot in the last couple of years. It's sort of become a feeder program for hiring. I think 2 of the 3 guys we have that are graduating the academy next month are alumni of that program. So it sort of vets them up for us too.
One of the capital projects, he created basically a curriculum for the CSO. So in addition to doing the work for us throughout the year, they do ride-alongs, and they get trained with our detectives and other departments. So they're getting an education component of that, just doing work for us. Excellent.
How many total CSOs do we have?
So we have 18.
And they're running shifts of, they're like Olive's working, or 2 a day, or what's it?
So the way it works is they're divided into 3 groups of 6.
Okay.
So on any given day, 2 of those groups are working. We use 12 every day.
Okay.
And the reason why we need 12 is because after dark, we staff the beach. The beach people go home. We staff the beach until 2 a.m. And that's a huge benefit too, because if the police had to be on the beach all night watching what's going on, then take resources right off the road. So and because it's dark and it's at night, you can't just put 1 person out there. So on the average day in the summertime, 8 of them work during the day, and the other 4 work after dark at the beach.
Thank you.
And you can see the notes there on a couple of increases that were requested. Small increase for overtime because we've been at the same rate for a while, and there's been raises, so that drives up the cost for us. Any questions on patrol? page 39 is general police investigation.
So it's the detective division, it's staffed by a lieutenant and sergeant, 3 detectives. I don't believe there's any increases in here, other than just the pay raises and whatnot. The division's fully staffed right now, fully functional, not really asking for anything extra on that.
Any questions on investigations?
No.
So on page 40 is our animal control department.
How many employees, so it's full-time is 54,000. Is that, so sorry, for the animal control? Is that what we're on? Animal
Yes.
Yeah, the full-time wages, yes, yep, so there's one full-time. yeah.
Just one, okay.
There's one, yeah. We, most of the time have one part-time also, they cover weekends and evenings, up to 20 hours a week. The last one we had left for another opportunity with the state, so we're actually in a hiring process now, which is the reason why the part-time wages, the second line in that, for 2019 has not been used that much. He left a while ago, so.
And so now there's no part-time?
There's none right now, no.
Is that like, is there urgency for that or not really?
There's not as much of an urgency for it in the winter, but in the summertime, it's pretty handy. We could actually use one right now. The beach becomes a point of attention for a lot of people. And
Yes.
on the weekends, that's what they typically do is watch the beach, and same thing in the evening. So they also do a lot of follow-up. For some reason, we've had a lot of dog bite complaints this year, and there's a lot of there's protocols in the state law that has to be followed. A lot of times when the full-time ACO, who works Monday through Friday, is out knocking on a door to do a follow-up, people that work Monday through Friday. So the part-timer, in my experience, also does a lot of the follow-up with the bite complaints, which we have to take seriously.
Yeah, okay.
Does the, so the licensing of animals, does that come into any of your budget, or is that a general fund?
General fund.
That's a general fund.
That's Terry, it's through my office.
That's through your office, but it's general fund, okay.
Which this is funded through general fund, so it's the same pot of money.
Right. Do you feel that the weekend officer, I mean, again, their qualifications are no different than full-time, right?
Correct.
They carry a firearm?
They don't, yeah, they can, yeah, they don't, when they say carry it, they don't carry it, but yeah, they keep, if they're qualified and trained with it, it's a rifle, yes, they do.
A couple of years back, the state passed a law, now all animal control officers are required to go through a certification program. It's a 2-part, fairly comprehensive testing that they have to do and training.
Right.
And they also ruled that that includes part-time people, so that's one of the reasons why we have an increase here for training, so we're going to have to train that person.
So they're in an hourly rate,
Yes.
basically?
Yes.
Do you know what that rate is?
I don't know if I have the list of the
Roughly?
part-time seasonal employees with me here. Actually, I do. Well, I can tell you what the range is on here. I can't tell you the actual rate.
Yeah, range
Part-time
is-
animal control, so the range is between 11 and 16. I don't know what it's set at right now, but that's the range.
$11 an hour to 16.
Correct.
And they can carry a weapon.
Yes.
You looking for a part-time
I'm
worker?
basically looking at this as, this is a low wage for somebody that's, if you know the involvement behind your dog officers, especially on the weekend, even though they're part-time. If you go out to other communities and stuff, the training they have to go through and everything else. And if they're in the middle there and they're getting paid $14 an hour, you know, that's a very low scale.
Yeah, that has been a change in working conditions, you could say.
Right.
Previously, you'd hire somebody who either didn't have much experience or very little experience to be a
Right.
part-time person. They would be trained by the full-time person,
Right.
but now there's a state requirement.
It makes sense what happens, something was saying, that if they're gonna do the bulk of the actual knocking on the door on the weekend and talking, that we'd have to want a qualified person.
Well, and it's very intense on weekends.
And we take that into consideration when we hire these people too.
Yeah.
They have to sit and answer a lot of questions.
Right.
The last two we've had, so this is probably going back to maybe 2013 maybe, two ACOs ago was a retired full-time ACO, so he knew what he was doing. And the most recent one we had, who left to work for the medical examiner, was a retired detective from Johnston Police, so we didn't have any concerns about him either, so.
Right.
Those type of, that's the type of stuff in your resumes, so
we lost them.
it keeps us,
Yeah.
We lost them because, again, they got a better job or,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
something better that they were interested in. But I mean, if this was a little bit more of a level of what I would consider for this position, you might get somebody who would like to stay and be on board. And once they do the training, that you keep them. So it's not like you're retraining people every couple of years or whatever. And they do become part of your department and get, affiliated with the community.
Okay.
Okay.
Remember that. Anything else with the animal control division? And the last thing, last segment under police is the harbor master. There's a request for an increase in the temp wages, and that's to explore the possibility of bringing back a part-time harbor master, which we haven't had in a few years now. So we're looking at.
Some they help out like in July and August when we really ask a lot. They don't mind on be everywhere for us.
So current salary for that position,
The range for harbor master is 20 to 25, and assistant harbor master is 15 to 20.
and is that compatible to our surrounding communities with a
The last
full-time?
one I looked at on that was Jamestown hired an assistant harbor master at $17 an hour, so
Mhm.
okay, we'd be looking at that ballpark.
And with a full-time, with our full-time harbor master, is that?
He's close to the top of that range. I don't think he's quite at it. I just had that moved up last year.
That's another position that, believe it or not only time-consuming, but he has to answer a lot of questions out there.
He certainly does, and they're not all phrased and
He is-
politely.
he is excellent.
Yeah. and-
People are very passionate about their boats.
Right, and if you know the history, I know Kevin very well. He was in the Coast Guard, I think he retired from there. He was a firefighter. His experience out on the water is probably,
He was a Narragansett police officer at one point.
at one point earlier, right. His experience on the water is far beyond what you could ask for from anybody. And I hate to lose him as well. I know that North Kingston has a harbor master that, again, they're paying very well. We're a busy port. Galilee is very busy, has a lot of activity, has its commercial fishing port. So this boat is very important to be down there and for him to do what he does. He does all the moorings as well. I don't think people realize what he goes through with that. There's a lot of hassle there.
He does a lot of training with the police too for.
Right. So again, we're fortunate to have him, so hopefully it keeps working on.
Any questions on the harbor master? I think that's it. We'll go on to capital.
What page is that on?
23.
So the capital this year is,
I have to point one thing out first, Matt.
Sure.
I'm not sure if yours is accurate. The top page should say 20, it should say where it says 2018/2019, it should be 2019-20. So that vehicle replacement, that's 145, that's for the upcoming fiscal year. Not the one we're in.
Something
So there's 5 lines in this, this year that, will apply to this fiscal year. From the top, number 1 is vehicle replacement for $145,000. What we're asking for this year is sort of our annual request. It's to replace 3 cruisers, one of which would be the K9 car, which is very old right now. It's sort of on its last legs, and that needs to be specially outfitted. So.
We had a real hard time getting that car through the training program with them. It's very important for the air conditioning system to work flawlessly. Dog, we were working in the summer, breaking down constantly on
Maybe we can give that to engineering.
And with the dog that's a year old, this is an ideal time to get a new vehicle with the new handler with the new dog and expect it to last quite a long time. You know, he's not going to be one that's asking for a new car in 3 years. So.
Now, are these fully loaded? Do they have everything you need in them at this base price?
Yeah, that figure includes the outfitting. So
It does.
that'll buy me another 3 vehicles plus the equipment that we need, along with some of the balance that we have in the line. The 2 together, I think will get us there.
The only thing it wouldn't include would be the next line on here, which is the MDT mobile data terminals. Those are the like the hard tablet-style computers that are in the police cars. Especially, when I was brand new, we had a fold-up laptop that was like mounted on a stand in the car. Basically, you put your coffee on it. These things are made, they're rugged, they're made to be in a car. So this is just to replace older ones. It's like anything else. The car is the officer's office. This is where they do the business of being a police officer. So that's what the second line would be, is to basically cycle 3 new ones in and get rid of 3 new ones.
For the vehicles, do you guys, how do I say this? I don't really see sedans being used anymore.
No, we bought one more sedan last year, and I'm told by the fleet people that that's probably the last sedan we're going to see. We have a few left on the front line. There's a couple of officers that swear by them. They don't want to move into the SUVs.
Yeah.
And the ones, the last couple that we have haven't been problematic vehicles, so we sort of kept them a little longer. We did buy one more last year. I think that's probably going to be the last of those.
And what's like the reasoning for the SUVs?
Well, they're better in the weather. The amount of gear that we have to sort of pile into those things now is completely different than it was 15 years ago. The gun racks, the water rescue equipment, the supervisor's cars have even more stuff than that.
So you have a lot in the back.
A lot in the back, yeah. And combine that with the fact that they're better in the weather, and also we have, the chief can attest to this, we have some guys on our job that are just absolute monsters in size. They don't fit well.
6'5", 6'8".
So what we do with the SUVs is the entire back seat isn't a cage. It's just called a half cage. So the driver's seat is like any other car. They can go back as far as he needs to, which cuts down on the back, and they have problems at all. So there's it doesn't make any sense to me because I fit in all cars. When you throw guys that are 6'6" and 290. There's a reason why a lot more people used to go out on, back injuries in policing. I'm not in Narragansett, but so it is a lot healthier for the bigger guys too.
Okay.
And with the winter weather before, when we had those sedans, we had like 2 or maybe 3 pickup trucks, and we just get 2 cops in each one due north, one goes south, one in the center, and now we can put it's like a regular shift with working, because those SUVs are all-wheel drive.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Sure. I don't know if anybody had any question on the mobile data terminals. The next one is body armor. We have a mandatory wear policy. Those get replaced every 5 years, should we replace
5
them?
years.
5 years, so this would be to cycle a bunch of those out. It's noted in the specific page that because we are a mandatory wear department, a federal grant will cover half of it, so that $6,266, half of that would be reimbursed to us by that program.
Yeah, we had a big purchase a couple of years back that I think covered like 28 officers in this. And then we've had a bunch of new people come on that we've outfitted as going away. This is we'll take care of the remainder, get it, everybody in line. That's why it's zeroed out next year.
The radios, that's sort of like the same as the MDTs, that's to cycle X amount out of the older ones. Those are, you know, subject to wear and tear as much as anything else we use. I have one of the oldest ones we have because I don't use it every day, but frankly, mine needs to be replaced too. So by putting a little bit every year in the capital, it's going to allow us to sort of cycle out the worst and sort of feedback.
Chief Partington gave you a dissertation on that.
Oh, yeah, we
It's the same
learned
thing.
I won't give you but the ones we have now, we are no longer going to be under warranty after this fiscal year is over, so we're not going to get them fixed. So
Yeah.
it's a good time to start bringing in a new generation a few at a time without doing have to know all at once.
They're like what? They're really expensive, right?
They're pretty expensive, yeah, they're a few
Ours
thousand.
are a little cheaper than the fire department, but it's still like 3,500, 4,000 after you get all the
Yeah.
attachments and warranty on it.
And the last line under equipment, on that page is a quick description of it, basically. It's to sort of stock up the department's active shooter hostile events in Warren. Basically, the equipment that we've had as a department, a couple of helmets we had looked like they were from Vietnam, to be honest with you. The ballistic shields, if we ever had to use those, the battering rams, they were old. And now that we have a warrant service team that's training monthly with this type of stuff, this is a request to better outfit those guys with the proper tools of the trade that we frankly haven't had here in years.
Some of our shotguns are like
Yeah.
18, 20 years old and all rusted out. There's some included in there, some less lethal munitions as well, which from people, for any of you that have been to any of our awards, you know that we deal with these situations sometimes with people who are in a crisis where it's good to be able to have some distance and use a less lethal option rather than being forced into a potential lethal use of force instead. So our guys have done a good job of researching that and training with it, so we want to support that.
And you can see by the years here, it's not something that's in there for every year. This is sort of like to bring something up to where it should be that's not there, that hasn't been there right now. It's not going to be every good thing.
I'll make a quick note that on the item number 7 here, the tasers, we had been requesting $15,000 for that. When I did the cuts on capital, I pushed to next year. We tried to cut something from every department.
How much is a taser? How much does 15,000 get?
That's like, with all the equipment that you need to go along with it and the warranty, that would probably get you about 5.
Yeah, 5 or 6, yeah. One for the month.
Any questions on those? Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Galilee. Galilee Landing, page 114.
MD 40.
For Pat.
I just keep looking at it.
So Matt, do you want to speak about, this is Matt's
I've been there a long
budget,
time, yeah.
and just.
And the landing fees come in from the ferry, that's the amount that you see coming in at the, eventually, it's called event revenue, but it's really landing fees. It used to be called the Galley Landing Fund. I know it used to be called Fund 43, now it's called the Galley Landing Fund. And so the money is supposed to be used under statute for projects in Galilee related. So when you see the wages and some of those things, those are for CSO support that's down there. And then you'll see the 15,000, which is for the improvements in Galilee.
Right, and the 19.5 is for the trash pickup down there.
Yep.
And so there's 15 put aside for the Galilee. what
Yeah,
do
so
they
Galley
call themselves?
improvements,
What do
they've
they
got-
call
Well,
themselves?
the Galley Advisory Committee.
Advisory
You guys
Committee.
have seen their items.
And we actually have some issues on a given year because our fiscal year is right in the middle of summer. And sometimes these projects don't get out of committee until the end of the spring, and they want to buy things in July, but the money has disappeared, not that, has gone to fund balance. So there is actually a fund balance in the Galilee Landing Fund. So Matt and I have talked about it. So in the future, if the Galilee Landing Committee does come to the council to ask for additional funds for projects, it's because of this whole timing of things, and there is actually a fund balance. So I just want you to know that there are funds within this
If the
area.
15 isn't used,
It goes
given
to
year
fund
goes to the
balance.
fund
It goes to fund
So this year,
balance.
they're probably gonna use some of the fund balance. They've just voted on some items, so I haven't done the blue sheets on them yet.
Right, and I
And
have
Susan
probably
Gallagher usually helps
somewhere
me.
around 10, 11, 13, 25,000 in projects that are pretty much earmarked, but we have like 15 here. So there will be additional funding being requested. I just want to give you the heads up that the funds are there. Guess who's up? Or 12, 14, 60.
Good evening. Okay, actually, I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about the budget. I'm really excited for some of the changes that we're looking forward to. Just briefly, I wanted to give you an overview of the people within the departments. The three that I'll be speaking to, these divisions are all within the town clerk's office under my direct supervision. So it's the town clerk's office and municipal court and board of canvassers. Within the town clerk's budget on page 12, that reflects 4 full-time employees, me being one of them. Janet Taro is the deputy town clerk. We have Bridget McPhillips and Sarah Masson. Sarah transferred from the tax collector's office. There have been significant savings in all 3 of these budgets, actually, in the personnel line items due to the contractual changes over the last couple of years. So it has resulted in some staff turnover, so that we've had several clerk 4s out of that collective bargaining unit with like 20, 25 years longevity, leaving and being replaced by people like clerk 1, 2, so there's significant savings on those lines within all 3 divisions. That's also reflected further down, like on the longevity lines, the buyback of the sick. There's some significant changes in this year's budget reflecting the impact that it had last year with people with some significant longevity leaving. Let's see. Still on page 12, on the contractual service. That includes the professional software that we currently use. You'll be familiar with ClerkBase, where we have the search and retrieval of agendas and minutes for the town council. Right now, that's all that we use it for. Other communities use that for their zoning and for planning as well. So we might be looking at that in the future. But so they have that capability, but this only includes the town council hosting. This also includes all the service fees for the land evidence records, That's the property records, the deeds and mortgages and so forth, and also the codification of the ordinances. So those are ongoing fees. They're online hosting, and then they're the paper copies that, we do supplements from time to time as you pass ordinances, and we collect them, incorporate them into the overall ordinance book and distribute those. We've added into that line this year some additional funding for online licensing. So this would be very new. We currently have a very manual program that we use a computer to do it, but it's very cumbersome and it requires a lot of finesse. So this system that we're looking at is Viewpoint, and that is the system that the building inspector's office is using, that he was so highly praising of. And for good reason. That's been a really good transition. And for all the criticisms of state software programs, the Viewpoint has been a real success. So they started it. They really insisted that the building departments went to it, and they were not happy about being forced into it, and it's been a complete success. So South Kingstown is one of the communities using Viewpoint for all their business licensing. So that's everything from dogs to alcoholic beverage licenses. And so I have visited there. Our IT director, Dan Holland, has gone over and met with their IT director as far as the integration and the conversion process, and we have a lot of helpful information. But this is an established system. It's been kind of tried out on the building officials. It's worked really well. And the real impetus for us now, the timing couldn't be better, because the state has changed the laws with regard to the mobile food units, so that's food trucks. They have a whole new licensing and inspection process involving the fire marshal, and it's very in-depth, and it is a requirement. And then there's a phase-in on the municipal side as to how the municipal licensing of food trucks will integrate with that. So to be licensed here, the way they are now, we call them peddlers. They will be required to have that state food truck permit, but that's all done through Viewpoint. So if we can get on board with that for all of our licenses, this all talks, it all integrates together. It has a much more formal system of going through the review process, so that all of the departments that might be affected by these various licenses, who have input as to whether or not they should be granted, as they've advised you on it, whether it's the police department, the fire department, the building official, zoning official, water issues, all of those things would be part of the screening process. And that's very informal right now. And with the Viewpoint licensing program, the applicant applies, and then it starts the online process. It goes from department to department to be signed off before it can progress to the point of coming back to the council. So it's a much more formal system. South Kingstown has a lot more licenses than we do, even though we have hundreds. Their transition was pretty smooth. They set up training sessions for the first round of licensing. All the business owners came in. It was over a period of a few nights. So while they were in the process of training, they were actually loading all the information in. So then the next year, the municipal employees just pushed out a renewal. It's all online, it's all through email, everybody has a secure login. They scan in their documentation as far as their health department or taxation licenses, BCIs, as the case may be. And it starts the whole process. They get email reminders, they get updates as far as where it is in the licensing process, going through the review process, and it has to be paid before it goes anywhere, which is unique, compared to the system that we do now, because we kind of chase after the fact now. So that is going to be a pretty minimal transition. The funding is built into that line item, but in addition to that, because I've got some other things going on too, kind of unique to the clerk's office, in the all of the fees that are collected from probate court filings and for the land evidence recordings, there's a surcharge tacked onto that by state law. It gets split between the state and the town. but it's dedicated for historic preservation. So anything you do to kind of maintain for perpetuity these types of records can fall into that classification to be using some of that funding for. The other thing is, for all of the land evidence recordings, in addition to that historic preservation surcharge, there's a 10% technology fee that's included in that as a set-aside. So although the fees are established by state law, the town reserves 10% out of that for technology. So we have a fund built for some of that. Some of that we use already for our land evidence online services, but this would, we have some funds available in that too to help support some of these new programs.
Did South Kingstown experience what it sounds like the water department did with freeing up hours with this, with people not having to actually
Yes.
speed things up for you?
Yes, yes, yes. And, you know, that's an important consideration because just in the town clerk's office, you know, we run the probate court, although, you know, the judge's salary is under the town clerk, under the town council's budget. All of the expenses and all of the work and duties are all under the town clerk's office. We do all the licensing, we have the property records, of course, you know, we do the town council administrative support. We do all the Open Meetings Act compliance for the town. We marshal the boards and committees and all the vacancies and filling and taking applications for all of that. And we do the records management for the town with the exclusion of the police and fire for all the access to public records compliance. So having people being available to direct in those areas will be very helpful because you know, there'll be some things I'll be looking to the council for in terms of some ordinance changes. I did a fee survey in 2012 about, you know, our neighboring communities and where we stand and what the state law allows and what our ordinance allows. And across the board, Narragansett charges the minimum allowed by law for everything. So, and there may or may not be an appetite for changing everything. You know, there may be some things you want to do incrementally. You spoke about dog licensing. We charge the minimum allowed by law. Believe me, it does not begin to cover just our material expenses. You know, never, you know, nothing to do with personnel time or anything, but just the mailings, the materials, the tags, the licensing. You know, it's just very labor intensive, and you know, and the law allows. It's a minimum of 6. Most communities have enabling legislation to allow them to charge more. There's usually a discount for spayed and neutered dogs. To encourage that, you want to encourage people to license, but you want to encourage them to also be responsible pet owners too. So there's some room there. We charge so little that I don't think people take it seriously.
$6.
Right.
What's the range? We can go to 6 to.
A lot of communities charge 25, and I'm not advocating for 25, and I would never advocate for that kind of a jump.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, if we went to 10, we're not talking about a big change in revenue, but it's more in line with what other communities charge and more reflective of the work and the elements involved in it as well.
Maybe we can get your rate up there for the part-time.
Well, and that's,
Right back, right?
and the possibility here is, we're not even covering the cost of what they go through to
No.
get this license.
And of the 6,
Right,
$1 is a set-aside for a spay-neuter fund.
right,
So we really only collect 5. So, I mean, it's
it's crazy.
a big process.
Right.
And it's a lot of
Even
foot
at
traffic.
$10, we'll probably be lucky if we break even.
Right, right. And, you know, the idea is not necessarily for revenue, but the idea is to cover your costs, you know,
Right.
and for people to take their responsibility seriously too, so.
So I'm definitely about going up to at least $10. I
Yeah.
mean,
And that's just
On
a
the low
small
end,
thing, you know,
right.
we're at the bottom on liquor licenses and all kinds of licenses, holiday and victualling and, you know, I mean, we've got some licenses that are $10 and, you know, there's so much work involved with them, at least the way we're currently running it, it's not productive.
Are they modernized too, and the peddler's license, that, you know, do other towns have peddler's license, or is that kind of?
Yeah, that's evolving a little bit. You know, it's still that terminology, victualling, which is the preparation of food for human consumption, and peddling, which means you are selling on the street as opposed to on private property. Those are terms, they're just the terms that
Okay,
will
so
probably be
it's
in
not
England
just us.
forever. You know, with this whole change in the mobile food enterprise business, that's kind of driving the whole change to the whole peddler thing. You might remember the Exceeda, I don't know if you remember that, when a couple of years ago, through the state, it was in 2017, the town partnered with the state in reviewing our whole business licensing process, looking at all of our ordinances and, you know, trying with the goal to make it more user-friendly for the businesses. It's not to discourage businesses, it's actually about making the whole thing more streamlined and simple for them to do, more uniform between communities, and, you know, just something that's easier and simpler to understand and not necessarily raise fees. Because one of the things we looked at are some of those archaic kind of things, like do we really still have a license? There's some really strange things in the ordinance that need some modernization, so that can be looked at the same time. So, but it's not just about the fees, it's making sure the ordinances reflect the things that you really want to govern, that you want to partner with the business owner and govern so that they're operated in the benefit of the community, so without beating them up on fees.
For the food truck change, at the state level, so they're gonna get licensed by the state,
Correct.
and then does that mean that they still have to get a license in every town that they serve food?
They do. So there is a phase-in on the municipal side of it where through July 1st, they will allow municipalities to continue to license the food trucks the way we have been and charging the fee we have been. And then after that, new regulations come into play where there's a maximum fee now that municipalities can charge. And there's more regulation as to what the requirements are before they can come to the municipality for the license. So there's no change involved for us because we're already in that cycle. Food trucks are a May 1st license, so there's no change for us now, so we don't have any pressure on us to do anything just yet, but we will have to this year, make some changes.
And is a town able to just default to the state license and say, we're fine, you have the state license?
You know, the fact that the town of Narragansett already has an ordinance that governs it, I don't know what the needs of the various departments might be, that they might want to keep that regulation. You know, food trucks, that whole enterprise has really changed. You know, it's really like a desirable business. They have multiple trucks in their fleet. They're all over the state. They go to different events. They set up for, you know, different private parties as well as on the street. And the state was looking to do some overall regulation, particularly with those that have propane tanks on board, where they're cooking in the truck. And there's fire hazards involved, and it's all the health department inspections as well as far as the food preparation. So they wanted to get a lot more governance at their end of it. So that's why all of that was developed. Whether or not it's optional for a municipality to license, I can look into that for you. I just was proceeding on the fact that we already do license them, so we need to work on getting our ordinance in compliance with the state law, but I can also look at whether or not that's an option.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it from the business side perspective, and it's a lot of licenses to have to apply for throughout the state when you know.
Well, so see, there is the carrot for this viewpoint, where that mobile operator would go in one time and would pay their fee, and part of it would be directed to the municipality, and part would be directed to the state, It's a one-time thing. They don't have to go to the state for their license and then come to the municipality.
Oh,
It's once. Once this is, we have to buy into the viewpoint.
yeah.
But that's an easy sell as far as I'm concerned. That's about a $5,000 investment. And it's a huge improvement over the system that we're using right now. And it will benefit the business owner, and not just the mobile food trucks, but it will benefit them with the ease of operating, and the ease of getting in, paying online, secure logins, requiring them to provide all that supplementary documentation. It just won't let you get past step 2 if you haven't done step 1. And that's a constant wrestle about, chasing people down for their other credentials that they really need to supply with their license application. So going back to that study that the town did with the state, the town, invested $2,900 to participate in that. And they had a lot of great recommendations, and we haven't incorporated any of them. So this would get us there.
Thank you, I was the person that pushed that
I
through,
know
so thank
you
you
were.
for doing this.
So, it's just, we had a big stall on it, and maybe things happen for a reason, because this whole thing with the food truck evolved in the interim, and, it will serve all of our licensing needs kind of as a benefit. So, it just works, and, it will involve a lot of integration with the information technology department, but they're completely on board, and, they're working with the other communities already and how to implement it, so that'll be an easy go. Just to stay on town clerk for a second, on page 13, there's a bump in the professional meetings and also on the licenses and the dues, and that was to make sure that the deputy is also a member of the professional associations in addition to myself, and also has the opportunity for the additional training. I came to the town trained, I was credentialed in 1988, so there wasn't a need to have that built into the budget, but we certainly have to make sure that, staff is as trained and available to, fill in, cross-train. So, that will always be there, but we need to kind of build that into the budget temporarily to make sure that everybody is up to snuff. I think that's everything on that budget. Overall increase of 3%, but that's mostly because of those software changes, not because of staffing or personnel. On the municipal court, it's an overall reduction of 8% in the overall budget. Again, that reflects the replacement of a 5-year clerk 3 with a first-year clerk 1. That's a major part of that change. The first line represents 2 full-time employees, and the second line that says part-time wages, that's actually the judge. And the overtime wages, you'll see our actual is significantly below the budgeted amount. And that's because
Because the probate judge is in the town council budget.
it is, and that's
The municipal
6,000.
judges here.
Correct, right. The overtime wages, the 2 current employees in that department both take most of their overtime as comp time. So, it's not reflected so much in the salary amount. So, but that could change at any time because that's discretionary. So it happens to be that the 2 people that are working municipal court, who have the after-hours work on municipal court evenings, that they prefer to take the comp time. So the budgeted amount is the budgeted amount, but the actual can be quite a bit less than that, as it is right now. The license and dues line, I think that's a little misleading. That's actually software licensing, that's the court management software. And the issue ticket line, the last line on page 14, that's the printing of the tickets for all of the issuing departments. So that's everything with code enforcement, the building inspector's office, minimum housing, animal control officer, the police department, all that printing expense goes through the municipal court. The two employees there are Lynette Lucier as the court administrator and Dawn Fusco as the other full-time employee, and Judge DeCubius. All set for Board of Canvassers?
Yep.
Okay. So on page 16 of Board of Canvassers, there's one employee, one full-time employee dedicated to that division. That's Kathleen Craig. Again, this is a 15% reduction in the overall budget for this department because a 25-year clerk 4 was replaced with a 5-year clerk 3. So that affected the longevity and sick payouts as well. The second line says part-time wages. Those are the 3 Board of Canvassers members. They get paid $50 a month. The overtime wages, that would be for the additional staff members that would be the people within our office that have to work election events that are paid overtime. So in this fiscal year, we're only looking at one event. That would be the presidential preference primary next March. The rest of the election events for the year, the September primary and the November primary, will be in the next fiscal year. So you'll see that next year. So there's only one election event in this fiscal year.
Terry, just curious, why is this commission, the people on the commission paid a monthly stipend?
There are a couple. I think planning, zoning, and board of canvassers
Okay.
receive a monthly stipend, as the council does too.
Just tense.
Just is, yeah, as opposed to quarterly or per event.
The button, we get that button on the appreciation day.
Yes. Yep. The line says contract personnel, about 2/3 of the way down for $28,000. Those are poll workers, one event. They get paid $175 a day. And the very last line on that page is food supplies for the poll workers for that one event. I think they get a $20 allotment for 2 meals.
Great, well, thank you. The clerk's office is the first line that people see, and I'm very proud that it's very customer friendly.
We are
Thank
too, we are too. It's a great office. We love the variety and the diversity of it. You can go in with a plan, and nothing really goes that way, but that's part of what we look forward to, is every day's a little different. And I would also point out in my revenue, fiscal year to date, we have over $1 million of revenue, and I know that's well above what is projected for us. I think 700,000, we have $1.1 million so far, which is a 20% increase over last year's fiscal revenue to date.
Nice.
We're busy.
Yes, you are.
Busy.
And we know we thanked you last night, but thank you for all the extra work you're doing with all the Apple requests. I mean, I know it's a
Thank
lot.
you.
Yeah, that's one of those unexpected events. It's all good, thank you.
All right, so in terms of where we are, is there anything anyone wanted to, the 2 things that I had were the towers elimination of 50,000 and the wage increase for police that you said had to go across.
Which, yeah, it was done.
It won't be in one, needs to be added after
Correct.
June 30th.
And I actually have the impact of that already.
Okay.
So, again, I said whatever changes I made, I would go back and I would change back to the fund balance. So right now, the unassigned fund balance needed for your budget is $1,610,856,000. So it is down from basically $2,050,000. The changes that you made, but I also made the changes to the OPEB fund because I had the 30-year projection, talked to Nyhart, I was able to change our OPEB close to $300,000. So right now, we sit using, just in broad terms, when I start to talk about it, the big picture here, is what it leaves us in unassigned fund balance is about 12%. At the, where we have the range of 10 to 15. So we're sitting right in the 12% range, where we need to be looking forward even to next year. We're still, if I was going to go 2 years out, you will still be about $500,000 or $600,000 short because of the use of this fund balance. This 1.6 has to be made up next year. So you will have to use 1.6 of your fund balance to level fund. So you're still about $500,000 or $600,000 short in a 2-year budget cycle to get to 10%. That's not unheard of. That's not a hard thing to probably accomplish. But my recommendation at this point is this is a good budget as it sits. If you start making additions, because we have a card day tomorrow, that things have not been budgeted for, but if you are going to add to the budget, you will want to consider what else you can cut to offset any new additions. Because right now, I would say this is a strong budget for you, just as it sits tonight. So as you're thinking of cuts, as you're thinking of adding, think of cuts.
So as we have the list of cuts that I've been trying to keep track of,
Yes.
and you've been trying to keep track of, so what, if we could for tomorrow, like when we finish and then have like a break, because you've been compiling as we go along, to see what those cuts are, and then how much we take from fund balance or how much we return to the taxpayer, because that's a conversation we had at the end of the night on Thursday.
Correct, but all the cuts are in the number I just gave you.
Which is the, going down to the 1.6.
Yes. Everything that you discussed yesterday, everything that I have discussed, it's all in the 1.6. The one thing that has not been addressed was you asked Tony about the building permit fees. That range is actually an increase of between $35,000 and $40,000 if we were to increase it. Not sure when you would enact it, because the longer it takes for you to enact, the less money that would be. So even if you said, well, if we enact it, halfway through the year, so you have to think about, it wouldn't be 40,000, it might be closer to 20,000. You would want to increase your revenue. Side note is that if we increase the building permit fee for next year, as of July 1st, 2020, apparently we have to abide by the state fee structure, which is closer to what we currently have. So this income increase would be for a 1-year period only, unless we are to dig our heels into the state not being able to mandate what we charge for building permit fees going forward. Side note, one-time
Road trip coupons
increase.
too.
So I just wanted to make you aware of that going forward. So if you wanted to go through with it, we may only be able to increase them for that 1 year.
And does the state, I don't know if you know this, would they be basing it off of the property value or the square footage?
I'm not sure what their calculation is, but Cindy came down to explain, and she just said the fee structure that we currently have, or the income that we raise from our fee structure, is basically what the state would be telling the town that that's what our fees would become.
Tony mentioned that it's estimated value, rather than square footage.
For the state.
State.
Got it. Strange, so that's a big change.
Yeah. But and that would be a legal question, I think, more than anything, as to whether that change they can impose that or not.
Because the problem with square footage is when people make out their permit, they can put down the square footage because they read a tape measure one way, and then we send Tony out, and it's more time consuming, and he actually says, no, it's not 900 square feet, it's 1,000 square feet. So again, I guess we do have to legally find out what we can do and we can't do.
Well, we can change we can change that 40 to, 40 cents, 60 cents, but it's more the next year,
Right.
is what I'm questioning, is can the state impose their fee structure on the town?
Right, and if we do it, we want to make sure that we're not playing flip-flop.
Right, we may wanna let the sleeping dog lie.
Right, right.
So
It's
where
bigger
I think,
conversation.
Right.
we have all this, we
Right.
could possibly raise revenue,
Find it someplace else.
but I just wanted to let you know, that's why I did not put it into the 1.6, because I thought it was worth the discussion before I made that change. So this 1.6 is without any of that change. But it did include the rental registration change.
All right, good, so, if we could have that, when we do go through that list and then decide, have the council can decide what goes to fund balance and what goes to, if they wanna reduce the tax burden.
Well, at this point,
Choices.
it's just a flip-flop between unreserved fund balance and tax revenue. You can do $1, $10.
Right, no,
$10.
but we haven't made those choices yet. Right
No,
now,
but-
it's reflected in fund balance.
I'm not sure I can go all the way back to see what changes I made, because I changed the police, fire, wages, and everything like that. I will try to give you a broad idea of what I changed,
Okay.
but in general, now it's just a matter of which revenue source you want to use. It's not, that's all. It's easier to talk which revenue source than it is the rental reg goes to tax rate and the, you know what I mean?
Right. Okay, I think to do the whole thing and then say, where do you want?
How do you want this to balance out?
Exactly, right. All right, so we'll continue the work session on
Tomorrow.
the 25th, tomorrow, at 6 p.m.